It's exciting times. We're actually really beginning our practices Wednesday of this week with the youth of our team, with the kind of the interruption of this past weekend has been a recruiting 3-day evaluation weekend, and then me having to leave to go to Denver. It made absolutely no sense to teach a bunch of freshmen something on a Wednesday and then say, remember this for 5 days for when we return. That isn't going to happen. So we've kind of geared up and worked a lot on our fundamentals and really allowed ourselves as a staff to get the feel of 7 new players, and this is probably the most important part, 7 new players who we think could be impactful. That's really, really exciting. So we had to get a flavor for what they're good at, how quickly they can learn things before we kind of decided on the things, especially offensively, that we could do going forward. So with that, we have a returning player and our newcomer of the year, Courtney Clements, who I think will be the one that maybe to the eyeball test looks the most different. Probably has lost about 10 or 15 pounds, really leaned up and learned a lot from a year ago. We have a healthy Kiana Stamps, which we haven't seen yet, and a redshirt transfer in Chelsea Hopkins, who was our team captain, and our point guard, who, again, will really be big difference makers for us, even though they haven't ever been on the floor. And I think that's our challenge, is every facet of a basketball game, we have to, in 22 days, have at least functionality, because we're going to have to start to play, and there will be at least one and as many as 3 people in the starting lineup that are new, as well as up to 5 at any one time. All of them can play, and all of them will see time. I'd rather turn it over to questions. Otherwise, I'll just start rambling, which I'm apt to do. Questions?
Well, Beth, initial assessment. You've had a practice. You're talking about all these new players. Can you compare last year to this year and what you're expecting?
No, I don't think you can compare at all, because you have really 75% of the locker room is different. Different strengths. We went from 2 years ago probably having as good a backcourt as there is on the West Coast, maybe in the country, in Q and Janae, to, unfortunately, with the loss of Kiana Stamps a year ago, going to a very good front line with very few ball handlers. And I think that was, and so we had to change we had to become a half-court team. We had to do what was best to take advantage of Paris and Jessica Bradley. Now we're back to probably more Aztec basketball, where we can play 95 feet. We have very good athletes. We have no huge size. We're 6'1", 6'2", but 2 of the freshmen that are 5'11" and 6 foot can grab the rim. So we're a lot more athletic than we were a year ago. We can put it on the floor a lot better than we did a year ago. We're going to be able to defend in the full court better, but we're not going to have those 2 big old shot blockers behind us. So I tell our guards on a daily basis, we'd best pressure the ball in the full court, because you have 2 freshmen running into each other behind you, and it's not going to be pretty. So everything's going to be a matter of youth, but we really like our upside and think this team could really be good.
Beth, you mentioned Courtney Clements learning a lot. What do you think the biggest lesson she learned from last year going into her year this year?
I just think the mental, mentalist to physical is 4:1. And at this level, everybody's trained, everybody's practicing, everybody, it's not like so many, and I'll answer your question. Think of the 5 freshmen I just described that are great athletes. They can do absolutely everything wrong at a lower level, but they're such good athletes, they have success. And I think Courtney had to realize the mental part of the game was where she really had to change her approach. And I think that's what, everybody learns at different paces. That's what we have to learn with these new kids. She had to go through it. Sometimes you have to get hit in the head before you figure out that there's something in your way. And I think that's what happened to her. And to her credit, took a step back, listened, reassessed, and has hit it hard. We won't know till games start. It's easy to be successful now. Everything's pretty black and white, pretty stop and go. We haven't had to do a lot of thinking yet, but we'll see.
How good a shooter is she in your mind?
She's a great shooter. She needs to be a great competitive shooter. She is a perfectionist. She'd rather spend 30 minutes and shoot 85%, and I'm trying to have her spend 15 minutes and shoot 58%. She's got to do things. She had to change everything. Everything is about tempo. Her mechanics are as good as anyone I've ever had, ever. So with her improved fitness, conditioning, and mental approach, we expect that she should be able to have a good year. Also, she's a catch-and-shoot player. Catch-and-shoot players are hard to have success when we didn't have a lot of ball handling a year ago. You know, she's great in a draw and kick game. Great. But we had to do everything off screens a year ago. And I think when you add the speed of Chelsea Hopkins, Kiana Stamps, a new freshman that we have in Ajale Harvey, who's going to be very good, and a returning Sejoya Griffin, we can put the ball on the floor and spread people out and find her. I think that'll help her too.
Coach, what do you like about the schedule this year, especially having that early season trip to Honolulu and kind of getting travel under your belt?
You know, just once I'd like to go to Honolulu in May without 20 friends. I just would like to throw that out when you all think it's so great. We spend our entire time in a hotel room watching film, but I think there is some nice things to Oahu that are out there. Our schedule is too difficult for our age and experience level. It's not too difficult for our talent level. But we are, and I think you see the same thing with our men, people do not like to play us. If you are a non-BCS school and you're supposed to be pretty good, nobody wants to play you. Nobody will play you except for top 30 teams. So I think that it's a little bit too hard. Going to UCLA, going to Washington State, Washington coming in here, playing DePaul in Hawaii, that's a little bit too difficult, only in that we're going to have to learn. We're going to make a ton of mistakes, and we'd like to have some success and be able to figure some things out as we go. With that said, we'll be ready come conference time. Our team's goal is to win the Mountain West Conference. More than any year since I've been here. 6 teams in the Mountain West Conference had a losing record last year. That's an unbelievable aberration. So more than any year ever, everybody right now, there's probably 9 coaches saying our goal is to win the Mountain West Conference, and I think it's legitimate. I couldn't even tell you who's going to be predicted what tomorrow, not that it really matters. So if we can keep our youth up going through some games that are a little bit over their head, I think it'll really advantage us once we get to Mountain West Conference.